going on, guys? Dan with PC Tech Hustle coming at you with another video. Today I got for you a new PC case unboxing and review. This will be on the Lian Li LANCOOL 205m. The interesting thing about this case is it's exclusively only available through Micro Center, and it's in that $50 budget range. Because of those two factors, I thought it'd make for a pretty decent content piece for the channel. Additionally, if you're new here and you enjoy PC case unboxings and reviews like this, or any other PC tech related content, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and also hit the bell notification so that way you're notified whenever I drop any new content. Other than that, let's get cracking into this PC case unboxing and review. Alrighty guys, and before we tear into this box, I just want to make a quick mention that this is completely sealed. It is untampered with. I have no idea how things really honestly look too much inside other than looking at the picture on the box right now. I did try to do a little bit of research. Lian Li has like a video on YouTube, or it's like a 2-minute video. It's pretty basic and it doesn't really cover a whole lot of exactly what features the case has. So this is going to be very raw in the format of exactly it is what it is as I unbox it. Additionally too, I wanted to make point that I think although some of the real fancy, nice case review videos out there by channels like Hardware Canucks and etc., those guys absolutely do phenomenal videos. The difference with that kind of video is they don't do the raw format, so they rarely, even hardly sometimes even show taking it out of the box. So their videos obviously being a different style, but I wanted to obviously share what the basic consumer would go through being opening this case from exactly how you get it from the store, because obviously it's from Micro Center, and then what you got inside. So let's get cracking on that and let's open her up and see what we got. And this is a micro ATX case. You kind of couldn't tell by the size of the box already. So we got the top part open. Ooh, and they got nice foam in here, the kind of more memory style foam instead of the hard styrofoam stuff that usually comes with extremely cheap PC cases. Sorry for the loud noises there. And let's just dump this over. Go. As I mentioned, this is the nice styrofoam, like the stuff that's really high quality, or what you would find in a high quality case. So already looking good. Let's flip it over. This is, the top of the case, and let's flip this over here, toss this aside. Also wrapped in what I would consider a nice plastic bag. I know it sounds funny nitpicking these things, but if you've opened as many cases that I have, you'll know what's the cheap plastic wraps and what's the nice plastic wraps, and this is the nice like non-staticky style wrap. I've had some of them where they, like the DIY PC cases, no major knock on them, but some of the materials that they use just even in the packing is noticeably cheaper than what you see here. So Lian Li's definitely living up to its namesake so far. Set that off to the side. Alright, so you guys are looking at the back side, so let's flip around here. Alright, this material on the front almost has a metal feel to it. I'll have to investigate that just a hair bit more. It's got a texture feel to it, kind of indicative of your typical steel chassis with that kind of texture feel. Lian Li badge up front, and we'll just kind of tip it up front here so that way we can see the I/O ports. So here we got power switch, nice clicky feel, reset switch, Two USB 3 mic and headphone jack. No USB-C, but obviously this being a $50 case, that's really not, I would say, even expected. I'm going to kind of turn it on its face here, and that'll kind of help show the magnetic dust filter, which is nice. I like that on even some of the budget cases. Good perforation here on the top, and looks like we have some fan mounting options due to that, so probably 140s and 120s, two of each on top. Alright, let's flip it back up on its feet. Actually, let's take a look at that real quick. So flip it back on its back. Here we have kind of your basics, I would say. A cheap, flimsy metal dust filter here. Doesn't obviously do too much for catching dust, but this is kind of cheap material that you would see usually on most budget cases. We have some soft feet here. This is kind of a rubbery, almost foamy style feel to it. And looks like underneath here is probably some drive mounting locations. Let's just set this off to the side. Looks like we have underneath here a large intake gap, which is nice to see. So Lian Li definitely put some consideration with this case. It actually has a very NZXT feel to it. It has some side perforation here on both sides, which is good. And additionally, the under panel, which let's see if I can pop that off real quick. Oh, yep, that came off very easily. And wow, this has a very dense feel to it. This is, if it isn't metal, then it's got some, okay, yeah, it's definitely metal, because we can see here on the sides, this is all one sheet metal piece all the way around. So it's kind of just clamped and screwed in to a plastic piece. So yeah, it's thought it felt a little better quality than your typical cheap plastic front covers. So let's look at what we got up front here. One thing I quickly notice here is we have another dust cover, which is nice. This is magnetic also, so very cool that they include that. Here you go. Here, if we doubted it being metal, here we go. So anyway, included front intake fan, which looks pretty decent quality. We'll investigate that a bit more. Let's go around and open up the back panel. Nice, some thumb screws I can actually twist off. Let's see if these are captive. No, they're not. That's okay. That's kind of a premium feature anyway, not a big deal. Let's spin around back, see what we got here included. Obviously a giant motherboard cutout for accessing cooler mounting options. Bag of tools. We got, looks like various screws that you would typically find in most cases. USB 3.0 jack, USB, or that's the HD audio. Ooh, this is nice. Got some rubber grommets that almost you'll never see in a case. That costs about 50 bucks or even more sometimes. Down below here we have the 3.5-inch cage drive, which looks like we can probably mount one inside and on the outside, on top in the power supply basement. Looks like we got a pretty good amount of space. And let me flip it up here, which we can actually see we have some holes to run cables for the power supply. I really like that when they do that on the shroud, so that way you can run your cables up to, like, say, your graphics card and your HD audio and USB jacks, etc. Not sure if there's any drive mounting options here on the back side of the motherboard tray, but we definitely have some right here. These look like a 2.5-inch bay mounting option, so we can put two here. Spin around back real quick just to see what we got here. This is access for our expansion slots, which look to be pop out. Let's see here, what does this do? Yes, these are the pop out kinds, so that's our first budget feel to this case, so not a big deal. But actually it feels like they're not quite as flimsy as some of the other budget cases I've worked with in the past. Let's flip the case around to the front here. We have tempered glass on the front. I'm a little curious how it's being held in right now, so let's find that out. So we got obviously a protective film on the front, so I'm just going to keep my hand on it to keep it pinched against the chassis. Undo the 2 thumb screws here. Oh, just slide it backwards. Okay. Oh wow, and this thing's got some pretty good heft to it. So another indicator of a super cheap case is if it comes with tempered glass. Sometimes the tempered glass will be thin. This is pretty thick. That's close to 5 millimeters. It also has kind of some seals on the top and on the bottom, which is nice. So now we've nearly disassembled the chassis. Got sitting here, we got the LANCOOL 205 user manual. Although it's exclusive to Micro Center, which is interesting, it still has its dedicated user manual. So let's take a closer look here. So right here on the fan, we have actually a 4-pin PWM fan. Wow, that's nice. And is it the same for the back one? Yeah, wow. Okay, so yeah, definitely some probably pretty decent quality fans. Let's see if it's a 4-pin PWM, like I said. That actually says on the hub here 800 to 1500 RPM. So that should probably move a decent amount of air. Let's get a little closer. At the motherboard tray, we got a hole for the EPS power, some pre-installed standoffs already for probably the micro ATX layout. I think this case only supports micro ATX and ITX configurations. And an interesting note too is the cutouts for the other areas to run power cables, being your video card and your HD audios and USBs. Find it interesting that they included grommets for some of the main power runs, but not for these. Not a huge deal. It's still nice to have it, obviously, instead of having to run it across, which I definitely appreciate Lian Li doing, but would be really nice to see some grommets here for a nice complete finished look. But again, I get it, because that probably is an area to save some, production costs. I think the only thing I haven't really covered here so far is the power supply shroud. It's got a nice little touch to it where it's got a Lian Li engraving. That is sometimes even a premium feature with budget cases, having that shroud. So definitely helps if you have an ugly power supply, you can hide those. For $50, this case is definitely in its own class, because I've definitely purchased $50 cases that weren't anywhere near feature full. I mean, these fans actually kind of pun intended here, blow me away, because they are 4-pin and they're full, so they're full PWM, and for 1500 RPM they definitely would move probably a pretty sizable amount of air in its actual configuration state, looks like, which is probably best for just pushing air directly across the chassis. One other note too I wanted to make is 2 included fans is great for even a budget case, but just want to make note of the additional fan options that you'll have, and potentially radiator options. They have a cutout right down here, which would allow you to run a radiator down into that location. Actually, it would be enough room for either a 240 or 280 millimeter radiator, or if you just want to do fans, you can do 2 120s or 2 140s. And as mentioned, obviously the top has 2 120 and 140 millimeter fan options, though with a radiator, I'll just bring it close, that would probably be a very tight fit to mount a radiator up top with some fans. So probably your best option, being that this case is small anyway, and that I think it should have a pretty decent airflow through the front, considering there's intake available through the bottom and each side. Your best option for radiator mounting, if you want to get this case, probably be the front. Alrighty, so I think in order to give a full comprehensive review of this case, let's put it back together real quick, since we've basically torn it down to show you all the features of the case. Now, since the front dust filter has to actually go on prior to assembling everything else. It has a kind of an indentation or cutout where it belongs, will fit into place. While we're up front, let's pop back on the front panel, which is just held in with bits of plastic that would recede into these holes. For the panels, rear panel, this is where we would line these up with the cutouts in the chassis. So this is the back panel. Those will just slide in. There we go. All right, now we can toss up our dust filter up top, spin it back around, grab our tempered glass panel. And the tempered glass panel has something similar where it's got those notches. We don't want to line that up with the front here where there's an open space to slide them into. So slide that in up front first. And should be rather held in place at this point. Then put in your thumb screw. All right. Okay. And the case is fully reassembled and actually has some weight to it again. So that's pretty much it torn down and put back together. Well, alrighty guys, I think that's a pretty thorough review of this case. I'd have to say I'm definitely thoroughly impressed. I really enjoyed this, taking a look at this case. It definitely has a lot of premium offerings, and just a few notes on those, obviously being the side perforations on both sides of the front panel and underneath where there's a big large gap. That's definitely going to allow for a lot of fresh, good airflow. A lot of the times with budget cases, their airflow design is just awful. And even some of the more premium cases where aesthetics is driven more than actual performance, and you end up suffering because it wasn't well thought out. Lian Li is definitely known for their great case design. So it obviously in this model, it's trickling down to their, I think this is actually the cheapest model that they have out there, but it's definitely trickling down into the budget realm. Now it does have some budget feel to it, right? Because that's what it is. So, you know, in the back we have some, you know, cut out or punch out PCIe expansion slots. We're missing some cable management grommets where there's holes where they've included in some areas and not in other areas. The metal is, although I would say sturdy, it still definitely has a little bit of a flimsy feel to it compared to premium cases out there. But it also still has some great things to it, like I mentioned with the airflow design, the fans being 4-pin PWMs, and there being 2 included. So that's obviously something that even some really nice cases out on the market don't even include. So really guys, next is just going to be building in this case, which I am extremely excited to do. Honestly, I really like this case, and I think it's going to probably be seen more as a mainstream case for my budget builds on the channel. I mean, I went down to Micro Center locally here in the DFW area, picked one up, and I usually spend about 40 to 50 bucks on much cheaper, much more poor quality cases. So again, I'm blown away and I really like this case. And guys, real quick before you go, take a look at the description down below where I have some links to some affiliate marketing for Amazon for products I recommend on the channel or I've used in previous builds. I'd love to include this one, although unfortunately it is a Micro Center only product. Maybe in the future there'll be some affiliate links I can include through Micro Center as well. And lastly, guys, do the YouTube thing, help me out, give me a like, give me a comment, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification button so that way you're informed of content as I drop it. And other than that, thanks for tuning into this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.